There is a version of wealth that most people imagine when they picture a rich person's garage. A Range Rover in the driveway, a BMW 7 Series for the weekdays, maybe an S-Class for important meetings. The full European luxury spread, refreshed every few years, because that is what success looks like from the outside. And then there is the version that actually exists inside a lot of genuinely wealthy households. A Lexus GX with 80,000 miles on it. A Porsche 911 that is 8 years old and still drives like new. Maybe a Tesla for daily commuting. And a conspicuous absence of the brands that look the most impressive at first glance. That gap between the imagined wealthy garage and the real one is not accidental. It is the result of a calculation that genuinely wealthy people tend to make, and that most aspirational buyers never do. Because aspirational buyers are focused on the signal the car sends, and wealthy buyers are focused on what the car actually costs them. Those are two very different problems with two very different answers. Wealthy people think in total cost, not sticker price. The first thing that separates how rich people evaluate luxury cars from how everyone else does is the unit of measurement. Most buyers think in monthly payments or purchase price. A $95,000 BMW feels like a $95,000 decision. A wealthy buyer thinks in total cost of ownership over the intended holding period. That $95,000 BMW is actually a $140,000 decision once you factor in insurance, maintenance, depreciation, repair exposure after warranty, and the opportunity cost of capital tied up in a rapidly depreciating asset. When you run that calculation honestly, several of the most prestigious luxury brands look significantly less attractive, and several brands that carry less social cachet start looking considerably smarter. This is not about being cheap. Genuinely wealthy people spend freely on things that deliver value. They are simply ruthless about identifying what actually delivers value versus what merely signals it. And in the luxury car market, those two things diverge dramatically, depending on which badge is on the hood. A founder who built a company from nothing and sold it for $30 million did not get there by confusing the appearance of good decisions with actual good decisions. That cognitive habit does not switch off when they walk into a showroom. The brands they quietly walk past. Let us be specific, because general observations are less useful than names. Land Rover is the most commonly cited example among genuinely wealthy car buyers who have done their homework. The Range Rover is one of the most aspirational vehicles on the planet. The aesthetic is almost impossible to argue with. The presence it commands in a parking lot is real. And wealthy people know all of this, which is why the ones who avoid it are making a deliberate choice rather than an uninformed one. The reliability data on Land Rover is simply brutal. Ranked 31st out of 32 brands. A 16% probability of a severe repair on any given dealer visit. Average per-visit repair costs above $1,100. Depreciation that strips 50 to 60% of value within 5 years on most configurations. An electronics architecture that generates complaints at a rate that has become something of a running joke among automotive journalists who cover reliability. Wealthy people who have owned one often describe the experience in similar terms. Beautiful car, stunning interior, drove wonderfully when it worked, and then cataloged a series of increasingly expensive repair events that eventually prompted them to ask a question that the purchase price had initially made feel unnecessary. Is this actually worth it? The answer a surprising number of them arrive at is no. Not because they cannot afford the repairs. They can. But because spending money on something unreliable feels different to people who think carefully about value. It feels like waste. And people who have built real wealth tend to have a strong aversion to waste regardless of how much money they have. Maserati occupies a similar position. The Ghibli and Quattroporte are genuinely beautiful machines with a heritage that is hard to overstate. They are also chronically unreliable, expensive to service, and depreciate at speeds that make even other luxury brands look stable. Maserati has spent years trying to shake a reliability reputation that keeps reforming around every new model generation. Wealthy buyers who follow the data tend to follow the data away from the showroom. Alfa Romeo gets the same treatment. Gorgeous, emotionally compelling in a way that almost no other brand can match. And deeply, consistently unreliable in ways that create a total ownership experience that sophisticated buyers have learned to price honestly before falling in love with the styling. The conversation that changes everything. There is a moment in a lot of wealthy people's relationship with luxury cars. A conversation with someone who has owned more of them for longer and done the math in a way that younger or less experienced buyers have not yet done. It usually goes something like this. You mention the car you are thinking about buying. They nod. They do not discourage you, they just ask one question. What do you think it is actually going to cost you over 5 years? Not the sticker price, not the monthly payment, the total. Purchase price minus likely resale value, plus insurance, plus maintenance, plus realistic repair exposure for that specific model based on actual owner data, plus the return you could have generated on that capital if it were deployed somewhere else. Most people have never done that calculation. When they do it for the first time, often at the prompting of someone wealthier and more experienced, the answer is genuinely surprising, and it changes what the decision looks like. A $95,000 BMW that costs $140,000 to own over 5 years is a different proposition than a $75,000 Lexus that costs $88,000 to own over the same period. You are paying $52,000 extra for the BMW experience. That might be worth it to you. But it should be a conscious choice made with accurate numbers, not a default assumption that the more prestigious badge is also the smarter purchase. The bottom line. Rich people avoid certain luxury cars for the same reason they got rich in the first place. They pay attention to what things actually cost, not just what they cost to acquire. They run the full calculation. They separate what a car signals from what a car delivers. And they have usually learned, either through personal experience or through proximity to others who have, that the most impressive cars on the surface are not always the most intelligent choices beneath it. The brands they avoid are not bad cars. Most of them are genuinely extraordinary in certain dimensions. But extraordinary in certain dimensions and worth owning are not always the same thing. The people who understand that distinction drive very well. They just do not always drive what you expect.